Hi guys, hope you are doing well this week. It is Wednesday, which means it is Wednesday's Word, and today it is going to be James Burton sharing with us. Today's theme is Great Plans, Unusual Methods, and we're going to be in Genesis chapter 50, verses 19 to 21. So I'll hand over to James.
Hi guys, thanks for listening to this video and I hope I can bring a wee bit of encouragement to you all today. Let me ask you, have you ever had one of those days whenever nothing seems to be going your way? You wake up in the morning and you sleep in, so now you're running late, and now finally you arrive to where you're going to that day, whether it be work or school, and you forgot your books and you forgot your lunch. Then you get home that night and you find out that your friends have bailed on you and didn't tell you about the party that they were going to that night. You just feel miserable and you feel down. If you think that was bad enough, we read of a character in the Bible called Joseph. And for much of his life, there wasn't a lot working out for him either. From Genesis 37 to Genesis 50, we read of a cluster of events that makes the day I just described to you sound like a good one. Let me remind you of a story, just quickly. When he was still a young man, he showed himself to have a gift in interpreting dreams. And maybe because of this gift, his father Jacob favoured him over the rest of his brothers. And so his brothers began to become very jealous of Joseph. And one day they sold him as a slave to Egypt. But before they sold him, they stole his rainbow-coloured jacket and brought it back to their father, saying that Joseph had been shredded and torn to pieces by a wild animal. Now Joseph was in Egypt, and he was put in charge of Potiphar's household, and just as things were going well for him, he was accused of rape and thrown into prison. But then things started to change for Joseph. One night Pharaoh had a dream, and this was like a dream like no other. He really wanted to find out what this dream meant. So he asked all his wise men and all the magicians in his kingdom, but not one of them could interpret the dream. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer advised him to ask Joseph to interpret this dream. And Joseph came before Pharaoh, and because he had this gift, he was able to interpret the dream correctly. He said to Pharaoh, "In the land of Egypt there will be 7 years of blessing and 7 years of famine to follow that." So Pharaoh, seeing that God had gifted Joseph, he put him in charge of Egypt during this time. As a result, then circumstances brought Joseph's brothers back to Joseph, and now they stand before him, terrified that Joseph would have his revenge on them for what they had done to him all those years ago. But we read Genesis 50 verses 19 to 21. And Joseph said, "Don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to harm me, but God intended all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. No, don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your children." So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them. Joseph realized as he was saying these words that God had intended it all for good. You see, all the unfair treatment and all the windy roads he had to face throughout his life had been leading up to this moment. It all had a purpose. God used everything in his past to make him into the leader that God wanted him to be for Egypt. We also see here that God used Joseph and his gift to interpret dreams to save many people from starvation. And today you may be thinking that you're a wee bit like Joseph. Life just doesn't seem to be going your way. You might not have been able to study that course that you wanted to study at uni, or you might have not been able to get that dream job that you've always wanted. And there may be a lot of people in your life that have continually let you down. But despite all of this, we must remember that God brings about great plans in our lives by using unusual methods like he did here in Joseph's life. Remember, we think small, but God thinks big. We think inside the box, while God thinks outside the box. His plans are always better than the plans we have for ourselves. He will use random circumstances and random people to bring about extraordinary things in our lives. And if you find yourself like Joseph today, let me encourage you to not give up hope and not to think that God has forgotten all about you, because God always knows what he's doing. He always knows what's best for us, and he always works all things out for our good. Can I just leave a wee verse with you today? It's found in Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. God bless, guys, and I hope to see you all very soon.